Early Sunday morning, Jonathan traveled home along with his uncle and cousin. They went to church and spent the rest of the day talking and relaxing. In the back of his mind, the young Tiophianiar mentally prepared himself for the next days to come. In case he found himself facing the vampires, Diran wanted him to be prepared, and he was not going to let his mentor down. The next morning, he made his way back through the portal and through the forest to the village. Now when he walked through the town, he understood the villagers' greetings and could return them. It seemed so peaceful here. When he arrived at Diran's house, the chauffeur invited him in for a small meal before beginning the new training routine. It was a light meal, just enough to give him energy, without making him sluggish from digestion. After the meal, they went to the training ground. The chauffeur had him stand in the ready stance in front of the 5 targets set up along the tree line. I want you to be able to hit multiple targets in rapid succession. You will not always find yourself in a fair fight. He waved his hand at a nearby stack of stones. Kellen tells me you have exceeded expectations. You have shown great growth with joy magic, and are even giving her employees competition. Diran paused, hand on chin, to study him. Joy is great for disarming or knocking out an opponent, but these magics will not be very effective against the vampires. For this we need fury magic or neutral. Diran turned towards the targets again. We will practice with the earth element. I will pick your targets. From left to right, they will be 1 through 5. When I call the number, I want you to hit the target with a rock from the pile. I will slowly increase the tempo as we progress. Understood? Yeah, I understand. Jonathan readied himself. Good. Diran walked towards the targets and picked up a large orb the apprentice had never noticed before. It looked to be a large, dark blue piece of glass. As he held it in his hands, his eyes glowed blue as he funneled mana into it. The orb glowed a brilliant, bright white like sunlight. Suddenly, the targets lifted off the ground. They floated up into the air, then began to move up and down, left and right, and backwards and forward. Despite the constant movement, they never overlapped each other. Jonathan's mouth fell open. Diran was constantly catching him off guard with all the different magics and magical items he had at his disposal. The chauffeur turned to face him. Let's begin. Call out when you need a rest. Jonathan took his stance and readied himself, trying to focus on a feeling of anger. Then Diran began to call. 2, 3, 5, 1, 4. The count was slow at first. Jonathan had a harder time hitting the moving targets, completely missing them on the first few shots, but slowly getting a feeling for the movement of the targets. As he started to get a hang of it, Diran slowly increased the tempo. As he began to wear down, his gut burning as his mana reserves were used up, he finally called a halt. He was taken aback when Diran barked out his next order. Stay ready. 5 more shots. With a tired sigh, he got back in his ready stance. Afterwards, Diran had him practicing his sword fighting. They picked up their shields and practice swords and began the bout. Then they slashed, jabbed, parried, and dodged until Jonathan was out of breath. Trying to catch Diran off guard, he would occasionally lunge forward with his sword, aiming for an opening. The chauffeur would bat it aside and score a point on him before he had time to react. On his third attempt, after Diran had scored once again, his mentor called a halt. You are telegraphing, he said simply. What do you mean? Jonathan had never heard that term before. All he knew is that Diran seemed to know his every move. Then he learned why that was. When you go to thrust your sword, you drop your shield down lower. Not only have I learned this means you are going for a lunge, but it also leaves you exposed. Diran demonstrated by lowering his own shield with his sword extended. Seeing how exposed he was, Jonathan nodded in understanding. Keep the shield up throughout the action. Otherwise, the fight will be over very quickly for you. The apprentice took his advice and committed it to memory. After practicing with a sword, Diran gave him 10 minutes to rest. Then it was back to throwing rocks at the targets. This time, knowing that he would make him do another 5 shots, Jonathan called a halt a little earlier. Unfortunately for him, Diran was wise to the trick. 10 more shots. Groaning, he obeyed. This grueling back and forth continued for another hour before Diran finally called a halt. That should be enough for today. Jonathan sank gratefully to his knees, sucking in lungfuls of air. Take some time to rest and recover. Take a shower, get some food, whatever you need. After an hour or two, come back to my house, and I will begin training you in potion brewing. Jonathan took his time getting ready and rested. His gut burned as if he had swallowed hot charcoal, but he knew that the burning sensation was a good sign. He quickly showered to remove the stench of sweat and changed into fresh clothes. Then, for the next 2 hours, he lied down on his bed. Once he was rested, he made his way to Diran's house. Anai and Diran were both waiting for him this time. After some brief niceties, he was led down to the basement. Jonathan was curious to see what a potion brewer's workspace would look like. It was pretty much the way he had imagined it. Shelves lined the walls on all sides. Bottles full of various liquids and ingredients, seemingly placed in no particular order, left very few empty spaces. Off to one side was a table covered in dried herbs, bundled together with twine. A stove was against one wall, with a closed grate above it. He assumed that there must be some sort of latch on the grate that controlled the slats, allowing an eye to open it to let steam and smoke out. Diran gave a disappointed shake of the head as his gaze swept over the shelves. I still do not see how you work like this. All of your ingredients are placed at random on these shelves. No labels either. And the way you handle your herbs. He was interrupted as Anai started to shove him towards the stairs. Yes, as if you haven't told me 1,000 times before. Now get out of here. You have hogged him long enough. It's my turn to teach him something. All right. I need to stop by Kenyar's shop anyway. He retreated upstairs as his wife watched him, hands on hips. When he was gone, she turned, giving Jonathan a bright smile. It's time to teach you some useful skills for once. Beckoning for him to follow, and I led Jonathan over to a small lectern set nearby the stove. A leather-bound book was perched on top, looking worn from time and use. She flipped it open, casually thumbing through the pages with her left hand as she tapped the surface of the lectern with the fingers of her right hand. I've marked down some simple recipes for you to learn. She plucked at a bit of paper sticking out from the book to show where she had marked pages. I think the best one for you to start with would be this one. An eye stopped on a page and tapped on the title of the selected potion. Jonathan looked at the page and frowned in confusion as he tried to read the title. Mana Trunk of Flanslicher Bases. He mangled the words, doing his best to read them, but failing to comprehend them. I believe your amulet has German as one of its languages. Tap it, and you should be able to read it. Jonathan did as he was instructed, and suddenly he seemed to understand the words, though they didn't change on the page. He held the amulet in his hand, marveling at the power of a seemingly ordinary piece of metal. Looking back at the paper, he read the title aloud in English. Plant-based mana potion. A thought occurred to him as he looked at an eye. Why is the recipe in German anyway? I traded this book with a member of the Kintasha many years ago. They have lived in Germany all their lives, so it is their native tongue. She drew his attention back to the book. So, plant-based mana potion. Do you know how we gain mana? From what Diran told me, we gain mana through food, and the vampires drain mana from their victims. Correct. There is a problem with each form. As Diran has told you, draining a victim of mana will kill them. It is a very painful process for them as well. Also, the speed at which mana is drawn in through this method causes an addictive craving for more mana. On the other hand, digesting food can take a long time to produce a useful amount of mana. So, in a fight, you want to rebuild mana as quickly as possible, without drawing so quickly that you get the addiction. Jonathan nodded his understanding, and she continued, That is where mana potions come in handy. These take around a minute or two to take effect. Ideally, just before you start a fight, a long practice session, or anything that will take a lot of mana, you want to drink one of these. Walking over to a shelf, she plucked a small vial from a little holding rack. The vial was about an inch long, with a diameter of a few centimeters. Inside, a bright yellow liquid sloshed as she held it up for him to see. He looked at the vial doubtfully. That's not a lot. Jonathan had assumed the potion would be in a glass bottle or in a flask of some kind. That is how it was on television and in video games. We don't use up much mana when we cast a spell. The vial, as small as it seems, could fuel you for hours. The appendix is a small organ as well, with little room for storage, so you only need a little potion to power yourself. Something occurred to Jonathan as he thought this over. If we gain mana naturally through digestion, does Diran use these potions to keep himself alive? Anai frowned as she answered him. On occasion, yes, but usually he drains the mana directly from plants. You said that the act of draining mana from something causes an addictive effect, but Diran seems fine to me. She gave a sad little smile in reply. You have to remember, he's not a person anymore. He has the capacity to think, and he has memories, but he doesn't have a brain. There is no possible way for him to have an addiction like that. He hadn't considered that, but then it was hard to remember what his mentor actually was. Once, Diran had a body. The Tiophianiar breathed, ate, drank, felt, and led a normal life, for a Tiophianiar anyway. Now, though, he was just a cloth doll, filled with nothing but stuffing. And I interrupted his musings, bringing him back to the current task. We're getting off track here. She brought him back over to the book. For the next few hours, she showed him how to prepare potions. She also showed him different ingredients, and explained to him the properties, how to recognize them, and where they could be found. At the end of the session, she produced 3 silver coins and handed them over. Jonathan frowned as he took them. What's wrong? Anai smirked and asked in a mockingly hurt voice, Are you too good for my money? It's just that you and Diran have already done so much for me here. Paying for meals, the room at the inn, my outfits, all of my equipment, and both of you are training me. It just doesn't feel right for you to pay me. I should be paying you. The potion brewer waved a hand in dismissal. Is that all it is? Don't worry about us. We're rich. Still seeing the concern in the Tiophianiar's eyes, she explained further. Potion brewing is a lucrative business. I make potions for the local general store here in Kurhasek, as well as 2 other stores from nearby settlements. That, and I make far more profit from custom orders. As for my husband, he works for our nation. He gets paid from the taxes we pay to the council. They give him a large wage in compensation for his work. Although she grinned wickedly as she finished the sentence. I make more than he does. Jonathan still felt he owed them, and Anai patted his shoulder, seeing his hesitation. If it really bothers you, I can discuss it with Diran. It did make him feel better, and he thanked her. Before he left, Anai gave him a schedule the Tiophianiar made for him. On weekdays, he would train with Diran from 7 in the morning to 12 in the evening. After the training session, he had classes with different people around the town. On Monday, he had potion brewing with Anai. Tuesday, he was enchanting with Kinyar. Wednesday, he would go back to work with Killen. Thursday, he would report to the gemsmith to work on his fury magic. And Friday, he was to go to the museum to learn about Tiophianiar history. His weekend seemed to be left open. Bidding farewell to Anai, he left for the inn. He followed his nightly routine, then threw himself onto his mattress. Already his muscles ached horribly, but he didn't care. For now he looked forward to the weeks to come.